Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Kerfuffle Spotlight. Really delighted to have Neil on. Hi, here. Neil from Payprop. How are you this fine day? All right?
I'm absolutely brilliant, Simon. Ready and raring for this spotlight and to show everybody what Payprop's about.
Don't worry, it's not adversarial. We're not trying to catch people out. It's all very friendly. So, good. Okay, let's kick off straight away. I think obviously everybody will, or most people certainly will recognise the name here. For those people that don't have an understanding what Payprop is about, do you want to just give us a brief overview?
Yeah, I mean, we have the strapline that we're an automated payment platform for the letting industry, but it's so broad and says so many things. Basically, we're a way of an agent taking all of those administration tasks, that compliance around the client accounting, and do it in a fully compliant but very efficient way, while making sure that the service standards that we really want to be known for, and that for most agents, that's why they got in, why they set up themselves, are always maintained when dealing with client money. And that's where Payprop, it stands for that 100% accuracy 100% of the time, because it uses real money flow through the bank to generate every piece of information that goes out to clients and customers.
Okay, nice, succinct, punchy start there in terms. So you got a couple of dream ticket items there, haven't you? See, greater efficiency, compliance, whilst obviously not the most exciting of things. If you're talking about accounts, probity and accuracy are the watchwords here, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the way the market has changed has been phenomenal, Simon. I've been in property now coming on close to 26 years. And unfortunately, when I started, I probably went in for all the wrong reasons. It was a low barrier to market. It looked like you didn't have to know a lot. And we moved people in without even tenancy agreements. There was no gas cert regulations. And it was a lot of it done on a handshake. But that's not our industry anymore. And that if we want to be a profession, then we've got to have that professionalism. And unfortunately, when it comes with that, the key core word that everybody hates is obviously the compliance angle. So anything that can help with that. And again, when we speak to our customers, it's not a nice buzzy word, but it's nice buzzy words that they bring back. It's the peace of mind. It's the comfort. It's the assurance. And, you know, that's what we do for our landlords and tenants. So we should have people within the industry doing the same to allow letting agents to get on and do their job.
Yeah, we used to have kind of things like property trackers that many of the CRM systems had. And I remember it wasn't too many years ago. And we got, while some saw the adoption of it as just a logical one, some really felt that it was just putting too much information, sensitive information on there. I think that, realistically, and that was a genuine barrier. I'm guessing you had that at that time as well, but that's rapidly changed, I guess, with everything recently.
Do you know, we say one of the things that is hardest for us is getting people to see the product. Once people see the product makes sense. Yeah. But for a lot of people, automation, efficiency, it means so many different things. I'll speak to some people and, well, we've got automation because it's their perception of reality. And almost we're trying to get through the door to show something that isn't even on their radar. And when I was an agent, I haven't got oodles of time to sit and look at things that might change my world. What I've actually got to be busy doing is dealing with the world that's right in front of me. And often to take that step back, to be able to reflect, it's a difficult thing to get time to do in any small business.
What is it you feel about when you do? I totally resonate with that. The most frustrating ones you'll know when you're trying to talk to people is like, they just don't give you the opportunity because they know the minute you see the proposition, you get it like that, don't you? When do you think it is that that it drops for people? What is it about the service that really then gets their attention?
So when we actually go through the process, I think it's the fact that even people who have played within this space, it's the fact that we've specialized in this area, that there isn't a business aspect for residential lettings that we haven't already encountered, come across with our customers. Even when we started in the UK, we were already tested for 11 years in another residential market. So even though we came new to the market, a lot of that learning that a new technology comes with, we'd already gone through that. And then one of the biggest frustrations I had from a property side is every technology company that came out there decided that it had to be a one size fits all. And most of them, it was because they'd been an agent and that's how they'd done it. And they'd gone and find a technology solution to repeat that. Payprop has been built in such a way that its rules and the way that it's done, it can flex to almost anybody's working way. And I used to do a thing where I used to hold up the phone because I used to say, this does exactly the same. There's lots of people that have probably got the same model as me. But the moment you get people involved, the likelihood that we've got the same apps, not going to happen. Because when people get involved, we put our own stamp on it. And that's how Payprop works. We allow agents to put their own stamp while still being compliant in the way that they have their client money and their communication to their landlords and tenants.
Doesn't that necessarily involve make it difficult to support though if you're giving that flexibility, or is it that you've done the thinking in advance and put the flexibility into the product itself?
I would say yes, it still makes it difficult, but that's why we stand behind our service, and that's probably something that we get spoken about the most. That we are always on hand. Because there are still going to be client accounting worries. We're still not expecting people to be banking or accounting specialists when they're dealing within the letting industry. That's what we're there for. But we do ask all of those questions. We have people within the business from banking, audit, right the way through to letting sat there saying, what would I expect this to do at this point in time? And it's that constant asking of the questions that allows us to get the system to be in a modular manner that it will cater for all of these different eventualities. And there's so much being thrown at us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in letting.
Never ends, does it?
No, and it never will. I don't know a single market that has entered into legislation and compliance and 10 years can say, do you know what? It's less than it was 10 years ago. If you're on that journey, it only gets stronger. So we may as well adapt as quickly as we can. The big thing that I think has shown during what we've experienced recently is you are never going to get rid of the person element from this as a transactional, whether it's letting or buying a house. And I think that's been really good to see. But technology can help us spend more time on that person-to-person interaction.
So is that what do you see technology delivering then? What to you does technology's promise?
Technology should allow us to get away from repetitive tasks. It should allow us to get from error-prone repetitiveness that needs to be put into processes where we're doing the same thing over and over again. But technology should also allow us to maintain and set a standard. And that's really where I think technology is coming in and it's providing a buzz and a fix. And I've seen people with 10, 12, 20 different technology solutions, but actually their processes and their efficiency as an agency isn't any better. And
that's a very common complaint, isn't it? I've got a tech stack. It was meant to save me all this time and hassle, and actually I'm not doing any more with that. And actually, you do need to do a bit of navel gazing and realize, well, what's the reason behind that?
Yeah, and I often say to people, as a business owner, there should only be two questions that we're all sat there asking. How do I protect what I've got, and how do I get more? And if your technology solution cannot answer to one of those simple questions, then you've really got to ask yourself, is it right for my business? And I would say that's the other thing where Payprop and the methodology that we've taken is really good, that we don't want customers for the short time. So actually, as an annuity-based business, we need customers that are going to stay with us long-term. Our initial onboarding really doesn't work out for a customer that comes on, realizes it doesn't work and leave. So either it works for a customer or we are more than prepared to move away from that customer and actually say, you need to look at something else. This is not the right solution for you.
And have you ever had to do that? I mean, it's great to say it, but have you ever felt like you've had to have that difficult conversation?
Oh, we've had to have that difficult conversation in a number of times. If on the selection criteria for my sales team, it is not the right thing for that agent to do, then we have our core methodology is that we're all about truth, care, and transparency. Yeah. I don't think you can have that unless you are prepared to be that transparent with a customer. You know, it's not the right thing for you right now. You have bigger problems within your business. Or actually sitting with people and saying, I would know you would love to have Payprop, but actually are you a letting agent at the moment, the way that you're operating? And it's a difficult conversation to have.
It is. I can totally concur with that. Again, going back to my old CRM days, and you know, on the accountancy side of things, when migrating people would be critiquing, you know, oh, this project's taking too long, and it's like, well, unless you've reconciled your accounts to start off with, you know, we can't magically reconcile these. There has to be a start point, otherwise you've started off erroneously anyway, haven't you?
Yeah, and that often is the true cost of a technology change, and that's something I would say we're not afraid to go over the two technology change. We often get people saying, "Why are you telling me? Have I taken into account all the training and the time that it would take to actually take the product on?" And it's because we want people going in eyes wide open. We're zero contract. We don't buy any people into any time. So if it doesn't work, they can just go away from it. So we need to know that they're coming in for the right reasons, for the right savings, and that their return on investment is realistic. Now, often we find people overplay. So we always lowball because I would rather, and it's probably from my old sales background, but I would rather under promise and over deliver when we're dealing with a technology solution. And because of that, we've got some great, I mean, already on our Kerfuffle, already our reviews where our clients want to promote ourselves are already saying, and again, you'll see from those, it's a lot of the emotive stuff that comes out. The fact that we can do all these features and the things that a salesperson might think that's why a letting agent chose it. They didn't. They chose it for the peace of mind.
Yeah, and the big advantage there, and I could completely concur with what you're saying about what technology is meant to do. The big benefit, of course, in terms of what you've done is if you have got, you know, you've got detail, you've got automation, you know, the efficiencies, it is made for that accountancy thing that you're obviously focusing on, isn't it? I mean, you really can see an economies of scale there as you add more and more tenancies into it, that this simply just is a no-brainer rather than just recruiting more and more accountants.
We've had people who have come on who were some of our early adopters and came on in 2015, 2016, who have been with us now for 3 years plus, who part of our assessment with them as a solution is that they felt they'd reached their cap. And typically it was around that 200 to 250 managed units, and they remained stagnant there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Speak to them now, and they've got 3 to 4 times that number of properties, because suddenly, well, the guy that comes to me and says, I've got 50 properties and I'm worrying about whether I can actually process that. Well, now the person who's doing it, it's no different for them doing 250 to be doing 300. So now I can bring that business on without that worry. And because of removing that obstacle, we've actually found that they've gone and grown.
Yeah.
We're often quoted with this statistic, 23% year-on-year growth. And it's something I always check, and I'm shocked by it. But actually across our platform, looking at year-on-year across every person, that is our average growth across the platform. And we grow naturally as an industry.
Yeah, that's incredible. To be honest, I'd have had to have rounded it up or down because I wouldn't remember. But you're far more honest than me, so there you go.
It's got to be as it is, Simon.
Yeah. What's I really get that. Talking to prospective clients with lettings portfolios over the years, there does seem to be a natural sort of congregation to certain numbers of managed properties, didn't they? Certainly, you said there, that 250, a lot of people get stuck at that point. I don't know whether it's like 700 to 1,000 is the next point there.
Yeah.
It's almost like these magical algorithms. And it's because, of course, business isn't a straight linear line, is it? There, you have to have, recruit people to be able to cater for that, whether that's property management staff or accountants, and then you step up again, don't you? So it's much more like a step of stairs rather than obviously that straight line on the graph.
Yeah, and I would say the first stepping point is probably, as most of us experienced, is around that 100 to 120 mark, where we could no longer do it ourselves with our one administrator. Yeah. And it had to get worse before it could get better. And I think some of that is the remembrance of that pain. At that next stepping point, we know we're going in. We know how much that hurt our current customer base because we had to almost lower our standards to get enough of a bucket to be able to then do the recruitment and the training to end up better on the other side.
Yeah.
What we do now is we say, well, actually, you can grow. And all of that training, the biggest point of contention for most landlords, am I going to get paid? Doesn't get affected. doesn't slow down, doesn't change. Doesn't matter whether your employees change, that same service level standard is given throughout.
Yeah.
And I think that makes the step up to that next level seem less daunting.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to get those kind of figures. I don't know who'd be able to produce those, but at what the growth levels of portfolios, you know, where they do. Because I mean, of course, with a system like yours, I've been saying none of this is linear, but it genuinely then can be much more a gradual, as you said, 23% year on year, can't it? So
yeah.
by the way, that's not gradual, that's stellar performance. That's stellar.
I mean, and when you look at that, remember, we take out some of the small players, but even some of those middle players, the amount of consolidation that's happened over the last 2 to 3 years has actually meant some people have seen their portfolios rise by huge numbers.
Yeah.
And actually dealing with that suddenly becomes a different beast. And I think that's another reason why we found our adoption, that we've got some good advocates within the market. We're going with yourselves as Kerfuffle, because everybody that's got that voice, we've got a good representation with those voices, and people hear it and they think, okay, I can see this starting to become something. Or the other question is, the people that they've had doing it for years are now starting to look at whether they may retire or move on. That seems to be another trigger point. But actually, I've had somebody who's dealt with this where it's not been a headache for me, and it's possibly going to become a headache, and I'd prefer to come up with a solution. That's often where we're brought in to look at the thing. And we talk about this with a solution because we're not a product. The people that we have going out there happen to be talking about Payprop, but we're looking solutions for businesses. And I think that's where technology companies need to make sure they're being honest and not just trying to shoehorn, whether it's right or wrong, their own product into a business.
Yeah, because look, I mean, and it's just an obvious one, really, isn't it? A bad client, as we know, and I don't mean this in terms of them being bad, but just a wrong fit. A wrong fit can really slow you down as a business while you try to, you know, crowbar a square peg into a round hole or something like that. And there does need to be, as I said, that actually we would all be, nobody likes to say no, do they? But we would be much better served by giving the best advice you were talking about earlier.
We are. And the difficulty with that is, and I know I've been on one of yours where you've said this before, is we judge people wrongly because of that. We have a salesperson come in front and that person sells to us. What we then typically say is, can I speak to a customer?
Yeah.
Or tell me how good you are. And even the worst companies in the world, even Skoda at the time when everything was broken, could have probably still found a driver that would have said, best car I've ever bought.
Love it. Yeah, love it. Yeah. It is. It's the nature of the salesperson that they have a couple of friendlies, don't they? They will. Yeah.
So when we do that, what we try and say is go out to these groups, go out to forums, go out to like Chris Watkins forums, go out to people like yourself, Kerfuffle, that are putting people together, and ask it in an open forum, because then you hear the good and the bad. Because that's then when you're taking it. Because do we try and do the best for every customer we can? Yeah. But we are also dealing with human beings. What we will do is always admit when something's not gone wrong, and we will fix it.
I'm trying to make it, try and make it right, isn't it? That's the main thing there. I think you're right. You know, in terms of look, the frustration is, and you can understand it because actually we're all so time poor these days. Once you've had maybe 2 or 3 calls with the reference list the salesperson does, and you've heard 3 very positive things, you know, actually you think, wow, you know, how much more can I really do? But of course, actually in this case, it really, you need to see that's fine having those conversations directly, but you also need to see a volume of testimony behind that, don't you, backing it up. And that's where, you know, as I said, yes, you know, sites like ours hopefully give just an extra level of due diligence to people making these difficult changes. Because look, let's be honest, changing your, you know, handing people essentially the, you know, their full accounts for their lettings is a big decision, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I talk about it. We're not a product sale. We're not a technology sale. We're a trust sale. The technology happens to be the rails that we're using. The banking happens to be the environment we work within. But the only reason a customer comes on is because they trust that actually what we're showing them will be delivered. And to ask anybody to trust when it's their whole lifeblood of their business, it's a big ask.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you just give us a bit of background? Give us a bit. I mean, you mentioned obviously that one of the lovely things is your UK minimum viable products. It had the advantage that it was tried and tested abroad as well, wasn't it? Do you mind just giving us a bit of an overview there? Because I think that'd be useful for people.
So one of the things I think that also helps us as a company is a lot of companies start out as a for-profit, and then they get a little bit of a social responsibility arm and they decide to give back. We started out the other way. So we were initially a foundation, a not-for-profit charity-based platform that was started by two brothers who were trying to send money back to a charity and were appalled at how difficult and how many fees were actually within that process. And so they fixed that solution. And they also did it in such a way that you shouldn't make money out of that. It shouldn't pay shareholders when you're giving money to go to charities.
Yeah.
When that was done, they then had this bank integrated solution that didn't make the money because it wasn't supposed to. But they looked then for an application of another industry that they could assist. And that's when they stumbled across the residential market. It's not something people often associate, but actually at the time, South Africa was probably about 10 or 12 years ahead of us in both client money protection and actually dealing with the regulation of agents. They had the Estate Agency Affairs Board, which was being installed, and they're also dealing with the Fidelity Fund Certificates, which is their equivalent of client money protection within the market. So there was a real need for somebody to come and answer and actually deal with that. Did we get it right first time? Absolutely not. One of the first things within the platform, it didn't even give an agent the ability to reconcile. It did it automatically for them. The amount of panic that just puts in me, just the thought of that as being an agent, that it assumes everything correct. So we've gone on that journey. Now we operate in South Africa, we're in the UK, we're in the United States, and we also operate in Canada. And in all of those markets, there are different things that for me operating in the UK caused me, in the North American market, it's still predominantly Czech. That's something really alien to me as the letting agency now within the UK, because we moved out of the Czech market so long ago. But there are so many things within banking that Payprop is able to help and assist with. And it's just finding all of those. And we're now coming up to it being a global solution where, give it 5-10 years and look at banking and how it's coming on. Yeah. Well, we're going to be having more transactions using cryptocurrencies. We've got even the Bank of England looking at a central bank cryptocurrency. We're getting more international investors where actually the idea of properties being all over is becoming even more open. So, banking, it's also making leaps and strides. So this whole idea of how it will work. And we've already seen lettings this year be subsumed into the anti-money laundering world. And again, that will only now get stronger. Now they've put lettings on the radar, it'll always be asked those same questions. And we went, 10 years between one directive, and then we went 2 between the next. Yeah. So the speed at which anti-money laundering is actually raising its head up to look at these things is also something that we need to make sure we're aware of.
I'm not sure this was the future we all hoped when the people were talking about the speed of, I was envisaging jetpacks and stuff like that, but
yeah, where's the proper hoverboard that I want given in the future?
Yeah, it's not good, is it? So we've got quite a few listeners actually and viewers from the UAE. What's interesting there is obviously they have quite a different model, more similar to America, where I think that's a lot more check-based as well, isn't it? There, you're talking about the global reach? Are you looking to go over there? Do you have people there already, or?
So we don't at the moment, and it's quite a lengthy process for us to go into any new territory. Yeah. Obviously needing to get the banking relationship, getting on the banking rails, making sure we've answered all of the legislation and the compliance questions for us, because there's no point in us handling the money for our clients. And then we're also looking at the viability of that market, because it is a huge cost.
Yeah, if you're gonna do all of that work, you've got to make sure that there's a revenue, appropriate, isn't there?
So, although at the moment we're going into set given areas, what we're hoping is part of this open banking and the fact that transactional borders may be opened is actually we won't need to go into a separate territory to be able to operate. That could give Payprop even a bigger global reach, where something like the UAE, the fact that we have that association within a global or a central banking format. But unfortunately, that's something that's still to be developed. Open banking has made its move, but it was very small. The US, the judiciary system, the Treasury has decided now to look at regulating, but they didn't even want to look at regulating the open banking. And until there is a centralized security, we'll find a global adoption quite hard.
And anyway, America's got enough on its plate at the moment.
Well, the world has got a lot on its plate at the moment.
How, just as a matter of interest, just on that point, how did your customers, how did they face it? How did they deal with the whole pandemic side of things?
Well, we did a whole marketing campaign, which was about even better at home for getting the new, because it was something that came back from our customers, that the fact that it is so mobile and that they weren't tied to an office, and quite often they were doing it from their mobile phones, their iPads, and because it was just a few clicks, that actually it didn't make that much difference. What they actually found more difficult was the processes that had gone alongside that they hadn't necessarily digitized, where things are still in the office. So we found it's great. I can still do all the payments and I can still do everything, but what do I do now? Because I've got things that need to be done and all my keys are fixed at the office.
Look, stay in touch with us, Neil. We'd love to see how that goes and catch up with you over the coming months.
Excellent. Excited about joining it with Kerfuffle, and we'll be excited to see where our journey goes, Simon.
Don't worry. If all you get out of it is some pink merch, it's on its way to you.
Yeah, well, I've gone with the yellow, so I can easily go with the pink.
Great. Cheers, Neil. Thank you, everybody, taking part. Have a great weekend. Cheerio.